All right, I want to thank everybody for coming in today. Today we are having, we are Harut North America. We are a Zionist organization. Our whole purpose is to enhance everybody's love for the land of Israel and sorry, I'm just having a weird day. So today we're having our webinar. It is on Unleashing Your Inner Strong Jew. Today we will be having Aaron Hadida, who is the head of Harut World Security for World Harut and the director for Harut Canada. We'll have Noad Lahat, who is a UFC champion, and we'll have Renee Rose, who is a criminal behavior analyst, geospatial intelligence for Shahan Sahar. I ask that everybody please keep your microphones muted at all times. Hold on a second, so I don't have to repeat this again. Okay, I'm asking everybody to please keep your microphones muted at all times. I will give one warning if you unmute. If you do not mute yourself back, then you will be removed from this webinar. So please stay muted at all times. They will begin to speak in a few minutes, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the event. So I'm going to start off with Aaron Hadida. And Aaron, thank you for coming.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you. I think it's undervalued when we have these types of events, how, people sort of take for granted the fact that, everybody has better things to do on a Sunday. And whenever I speak publicly, I always tell people who attended, to me, and this is legit, you guys are the heroes, because you can choose to do so many other things. And the fact that you want to come into a forum such as this and perhaps get a little bit of information, maybe educate ourselves a little bit better by speaking to one another and coming closer together as a community. Because of course we know exactly what's going on around the world, and it is more important these days to be a community and to stick together. And on a personal note, my friend Noad Lahat is here, and I'm always thrilled to see him. Such a gentleman, an amazing man. I can't wait till you hear from him. And I appreciate Renee from Shansar coming on, and every single one of you. Truly, we are blessed to be able to have this sort of forum, to speak with all of you and perhaps to field some questions from anybody that would like to pose any at the end at the Q&A period. I personally don't want to be too long-winded. I don't want to bore anybody on a Sunday. I think that we've got so much going on around us in the world as Jews, and we need to sort of come together to better understand it so that we can formulate plans in order to better deal with it. Because the truth of the matter is, we're not going anywhere. And at the end of the day, as much as they would like to think that they can eradicate us, it's never going to happen. We come from a line of like I've said it 100 times, Noad has said this, of kings and queens. And at the end of the day, we need to understand our history, and we need to understand where we come from, and the type of warriors who fought and who died to bring us to this point in time. And to me personally, it's multifaceted, but at the end of the day, it's one thing that drives me the hardest, and it's a mindset. The mindset of, I am a proud Zionist Jew. I am extremely proud of my people. I love Israel more than anything in the world, and I'm not going to allow it to be disparaged by anybody, anytime. And when I put that mindset to use, it affords me a confidence. I walk with this confidence where you just exude confidence. And when people see you and you speak to somebody and they understand immediately that you're not the type of Jew that they're going to push around. And it has nothing to do with physical ability. At the end of the day, physical ability is very important, but it has nothing to do with that, because the average person doesn't know who I am, doesn't know me from a hole in the ground. But when they speak to me, they understand that I am very proud of my heritage, and I will not allow anybody to attempt to harm it. We do security in our community around the world, and we do a lot of it. And we put people together who are capable of securing our communities. And anybody that threatens or attempts to threaten our community understands that there is going to be an answer to it. Now, in Canada, we have a lot of hatred. And I mean, it's becoming almost as bad as the UK. And we have to deal with that on a daily basis. There are events in our community and around our community every single day. And so when I get the calls or we have to organize for that event to be secured, we have to do it in a way that's almost military. It has to be, and it's unfortunate, and it's a sad statement to have to make. But when our people are inside, to us, we are their family. We tell everybody, these are my brothers and sisters that are inside holding a vigil or having an event or a fundraiser for the IDF or whatever it may be. So we need to ensure that everybody there comes peacefully and leaves safely. And so the way we do that is we just cover everything. We cover every avenue possible. Now, I teach every single one of our people that they have to have that mindset. That's the first step, in my opinion, to becoming a strong, tough Jew, is having that "you're not going to mess with me" mindset. And it's the same thing that any community out there does when they wake up in the morning. They don't wonder, where am I going today? Can I put on my hijab? Can I not put it on? But a Jewish woman or a Jewish student or whatever has to really think twice about where they're going to be that day. And I think that's the saddest statement to make. So we have to change that narrative. We have to educate people. We have to let everybody know that we have thousands of years of not only warriors behind us, but history, facts, evidence. And arming ourselves with all of that will ensure our longevity. And I mean, it's as simple as going on social media. And I know social media has become a mess. It's a disaster these days for Jews. It truly is. And it just feels like we're being inundated with all of this hatred and information coming at us and all of the lies and propaganda. But at the end of the day, you can attack it. I'm not saying defend it. You can attack it with facts. You can go at it, and I choose my battles wisely. I don't go after every post because there are people that just aren't worth responding to, in my opinion. But I go after the important ones. I go after the big ones, the journalists, the reporters, somebody who's a huge influencer that's got a very broad reach. Those are my targets, because I want all of their people to read factual evidence, historical facts. And I always say the same thing at the end. I'm always willing to have a peaceful debate. Give me a call, message me. You and I can sit and have a debate. You can tell me your point of view, and I'll give you my point of view, and let's see where we go from there. I'm not 1,000% the best at what I do, not even close. But I try my hardest to be good enough to defend our community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in doing that, again, it's multifaceted. And the mindset is number one. Educating yourself about our history is number two. And engaging with the community like we're doing today, connecting with our community so that we're speaking to each other, so that there's a face to the name, so that people understand, hey, that guy's part of my community. I can reach out to that person. I can, ask questions, and in organizations like Hirut, we're here for everybody. We don't alienate anybody. We don't, try to marginalize any pocket. We want everybody because that's who we are. As Jews, if you're willing to talk, I'm willing to speak to you. I have my own personal strong views on the way things should be and the way that I would like to see Israel. But that doesn't mean that I can't have a conversation with everybody. Now, when somebody comes at me with hatred, that's when I close the gate. If you're going to, choose to debate with hatred, I'm not interested in the debate. But generally speaking, anybody with a bit of an open mind, you can talk to. And this whole notion of we have to take down our mezuzahs, we have to hide our Judaism, that's the mindset they want to push us into. That's something they want to make us feel. But at the end of the day, that's not going to happen because we live in Western societies. And yes, the police have been less than forthcoming when it comes to the Jewish community lately. But that tide will change. We've got, like I say, we've got a perfect storm where we've got weak leaders on both sides of the border. We've got weak leaders in Canada, weak leaders in the US. And the tragedy of that is, the result of that is what we're experiencing as Jews. But that will change. And when it does change, we have to push back even harder because, if they can educate or not even educate, if they can take, regular folks who have zero knowledge of the region, the history, the people, and they can turn them into supporters of a terrorist organization who say that they hate quote unquote Zionists, then I mean, we should be pushing back. We should be pushing back much, much harder. And I do. Personally, I do. Everybody around me does. And in Canada, that's not such an easy thing to do. We had a walk for Israel not long ago where 50,000 participants showed up. And there were groups of us planning for 6 to 7 months on how to secure that walk. And once we had everything in place, our haters were minimized to a point where it was embarrassing. It literally was such a failure for them. They had been planning this on social media and in groups and chats. They had meetings about it for months on end. And after we secured, all of us, everybody who was involved, once it was secured, they were put in a corner where you couldn't even hear them or see them. And I said on a microphone at the walk, I said, I'd like to direct your attention to our haters for a moment because they are utter and complete failures. And this is who they are. They came out to a walk where we typically wouldn't do that to them. If they were celebrating whatever, we typically wouldn't go protest it. So they come to us hoping to disrupt, hoping to make a mockery of our community. And we pushed back, and we pushed back hard, and they embarrassed themselves. So again, I'll take you back to the mindset, because everybody there had this, I'm here for my beautiful country of Israel. I'm here to support my community. We had people from all walks of life that were there to support our community. And nobody was afraid of the haters. And we're talking about teenagers, children, we're talking about the elderly. Everybody had the same mindset. Now, granted, they were told in advance that we were going to all secure the walk very well. We guaranteed everybody's safety. And working with the policing community, working with various security companies, working with our guys and others, we ensured that we could offer that guarantee. But at the end of the day, we're not going to stand for it. We just can't. And if you put that in your mind and you hold on to that first and foremost, I'm not saying that everybody can get there immediately. It's a process. It probably took me the better part of my life to get here. And thank God that I'm here. And thank God that I'm able to do the work that I can do in our community. And I'm trying to pass that on so that everybody can adopt that mindset and get involved with our community. Because when you get involved with our community, as they say, there's strength in numbers. And I'm currently getting involved with parts of the Christian community that have a lot of support for the Jewish community, and trying to, sort of grow our numbers in that respect. Because at the end of the day, we're a very small community. And out of that small community, if you take the fractions who don't support our cause in our community, you take them away, we have real problems. So those of us, those of us who are fighting for our community on a daily basis need allies. We need a lot of support and a lot of people to join us. And it is so, so, so crucial. My father fought in World War II. And growing up, the first thing he always taught me is that there was going to be people that would hate me for who I am. And at first, I couldn't really grasp that concept. It was foreign to me because I grew up in a multicultural area. So I didn't know from hatred. I didn't know from any of it. But I decided early on that I wasn't going to stand for it. I wasn't going to. I would never allow my friends or myself or my people around me to be attacked and not do anything about it. How many videos do we have to see of Jews being attacked and beat up while 10 people are standing around doing nothing? And I get it. I get it. The automatic reaction is fear. And the automatic reaction is, hold on, let me just sit back because they're in shock. But you have to understand the mindset. Again, if you're confident enough to say, hey, buddy, stop doing what you're doing, he has to look around and now understand there's 10 more people that he has to deal with. Even if there's 4, I don't know many people that can handle 4 or 5 people on them at one time. And I'm not saying everybody has to go out and sacrifice themselves or be heroes or whatever. That's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is have it in your mind that we are Jews. We're proud. We've fought for years and we've got so much history behind us to get to this point. We can't just allow the world to hate us unanswered. We can't do it, because if we do it, the more we do it, It's bully mentality. If nobody pushes back, they're going to push back on us even harder. And that's not something that I'm comfortable with. And we have thousands of guys out there who are fighting for our community every single day. And I mean fighting for it and ensuring its safety. We have programs that we're developing currently to protect the community as much as possible right now around North America. We're rolling it out in the next couple of weeks, and God willing, it'll go far. But everybody in our community should pitch in some way. And there's various ways you can do that. If it's not physically, it's spiritually. If it's not spiritually, it's social media. If it's not social media, it's supporting events. It's being at events like this and understanding what we can do. There's what we call the power of one. One person. Moses was one person. Joshua was one person. Noah was one person. And look what they accomplished. God put it in our souls. It's in our DNA. And as long as we bring that out of ourselves and not allow it to stay dormant and sleep, we can do something. And the something is many different things. Again, social media posting, liking, commenting, educating. If you don't know a lot about our history, learn, read, so that you can better educate others. And to me, terminology is everything. I will never, ever call them Palestinians, ever. That's just not going to happen because that's incorrect terminology. So what they are to me are Arab occupiers. And at the end of the day, terminology is extremely important. But it's unleashing your history is unleashing the confidence for you to be able to go after people when they try to push a false narrative on you. When you know what you're talking about and you can defend your community, all it does is give you confidence immediately. Because years ago, when I wasn't so well versed in it, I didn't have the confidence. I was more of a physical confrontation. I would resort to physical because I couldn't really argue facts. But when I became well versed in the facts and our history, my love for Israel and our people grew deeper and deeper. And every day it grows deeper, if possible. So I'm just encouraging everybody to know what we're talking about. And if you need help, you can reach out to us anytime. We're always willing to be there for anybody in our community. We're always willing to help further our cause. And like I like to say, move the ball forward an inch at a time until we achieve our goals. And we will get there. We definitely will get there. So I would like to pass it on to my friend Noad Lahat, who in a lot of circumstances, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't need any introduction. He's a professional fighter. He is most famously known for leaving his championship in 2014 to go fight with his platoon in Gaza. And to me, this guy is everything that our community represents. Strength. He's a pillar of our community, respectful member of our community. I have nothing but love and respect for him. So before I keep rambling on and on and on, Noad, please.
I can't hear you.
We can't hear him.
Your mic's not working, bro.
Go ahead and introduce Renee while he gets his mic working. We'll go ahead and introduce Renee so he can get his mic up and working. We're gonna have Renee Rose. She's a criminal behavior analyst and geospatial intelligence for Shahan Sahar LLC Group.
Hello. Miriam, would you like me to go into my presentation while we wait for Noah? Okay, I'm gonna go. Here we have Noah. Let's see. Noah, is working? Okay. I'm gonna go. Hi, so Miriam did introduce me. My name is Renee Rose, and my training is and education is in clinical forensic psychology, criminal profiling, high-risk security assessments, as well as geospatial intelligence crime mapping. I am a partner with the Shansar LLC Security Group. We are based out of Orlando, Florida. I'm also a private consultant. So I'm going to provide a brief on modern terrorism, its key trends, and how to stay vigilant, more significantly, what that looks like for those individuals who are curious about what vigilance looks like outside of physical security. My discussion today is going to outline the roadmap of Islamic terrorism and anti-Semitic threats throughout North America, as well as offering actionable steps for individuals to combat those threats on a local level. So terror groups such as ISIS and the Islamic Resistance Movement, or the PLO, have long exploited opportunities to advance their agendas, and these groups have really become the masters of long-term tactical strategies in not just violent, but non-violent means. So when we are exploring offenders and offender behavior, we look at both violence and non-violent crime. And the release of the new Hamas charter in 2017, which if you're on social media, you've probably heard quite a lot about, is nearly the polar opposite from the original of 1988. And it paints their violent acts as self-defense and really as an expression of humanitarian values. So this is important because it has been an effective public relations campaign that's turned their global and local crimes into causes. And we've seen it most specifically after 9/11. So it's really important to note that the charter was written and released in August of 1988. And it's important because the new charter was released in 2017. So we have 20 plus years of adherence to a living document from the Islamic Brotherhood and Hamas, so smaller terror cells, and they've been acted upon internationally. So when we look at offender behavior, we think, what is a statistic likelihood that those who are already ingrained in this level of hate, violence, and extremism can immediately rehabilitate their views based on that document? So it's a question of recidivism, which is what is the likelihood of rehabilitation? And if we just break apart extremist behavior, it's very unlikely. So we've clearly seen unprovoked attacks on Israel from October 7th, continuing to validate the atrocities and extreme actions that their ideology and unchanging commitment to violence has created. Here in North America, we do see large swaths of nonviolent terror perpetuating this communal framework that's been necessary or that has been indicative of their original 1988 charter. And that has really been achieved through what we can see in exploiting inclusion and anti-Islamophobia legislation. which was triggered by the events following 9/11. Just some of those legislations that we can see have been the Department of Justice efforts to combat religious discriminations, including harsher penalties specific for Muslim groups, changes to the EOE Commission and making it easier for extremists to ingrain themselves in everyday life and political systems. It's something that we've seen here in the US. As well as hate crime legislation. The Department of Homeland Security has actually implemented outreach programs that are specifically designed for communities that have been affected by Islamophobia, community engagement and resilience programs, in addition to travel bans being lifted, as we know, in the United States, where those individuals coming into the U.S. From known security threat countries, we no longer have those. We no longer have those bans. But there's also private groups such as the ACLU and the Council on American Islamic Relations that have worked tirelessly to provide legal assistance to many of these people who are considered to be refugees. So one of the things that we did lose post 9/11 was also the ability to profile, and that was banned on ensuring, or banned on the idea of ensuring constitutional rights and building trust and diversity. So really, diversity has worked strongly against the cause or the intent of that was originally laid out for. So under these implementations, we've seen radical groups have the ability to embed themselves in universities and leverage diversity practices. It's decades old infiltration. So the Jewish people, in effect, are quite behind. If we're going to just talk about our collective works together to impact this particular behavior. Let's unpack a bit about what the modern terrorist definition actually is. So if we're not clear on it, a terrorist uses or advocates violence, intimidation, or coercion, and very frequently this is specifically used against civilians. The idea is to achieve their political, ideological, and religious objectives. So these actions are frequently designed to create fear, panic, and slowly, subtly influence government policies, as we've seen with the growing antisemitism and acts against Jews globally, not only in North America. So this begs the question of how then do we recognize terrorists? So modern terrorists, unfortunately, blend into society, which does make them challenging to identify. And as we know recently from the hostage rescue effort in Rafah, otherwise average-looking individuals, doctors, journalists, mothers, the elderly have taken part in physical terror and war crimes. So what today's terrorist looks like is a lot like an ordinary citizen in any area of the globe where we might be. This would include young, clean-cut, professional Westerners. So we even see today, as Aaron described through social media, but influential young women, psychologists, physicians, and politicians who play significant roles in spreading this extremist propaganda online and even in our educational institutions. So quickly, I would like to cover some of the key trends that we've seen in modern terrorism, because I think when we talk about terrorism, so many of us in North America like to just put blinders on and say, that's not us. We don't see suicide bombers here. We don't see actual threats. And as I described, terror is both nonviolent and violent, as with any other form of crime. So one of the first key trends that we've seen has been child soldiers and weaponized rape. Terrorism, like other crimes, certainly evolves, and incorporating insidious tactics such as the use of child soldiers and weaponized rape, rather than being globally condemned, these horrifying practices have become, in some groups, justified tools in their arsenal, both within and outside of Israel. So if we look at Paris, for example, that are primarily targeting civilian and minor under the age of 18 Jews. So it's a normalization of inhumane acts that we're seeing take place more frequently. And I don't just mean these acts, but the specific non-violent normalization of it. So defending it, justifying it as a tool of resistance. The second one would be infiltration through diversity and inclusion, which I did briefly touch on, that post 9/11 Western societies adopting anti-Islamophobic legislation where diversity and inclusion are championed. They are well-intentioned, make no mistake, but these measures have been exploited by radicals and those who intend to further the religious and political ideologies. So it really opens a door for information warfare, economic sabotage, political manipulation, and increasing physical security threats. What that has led into is really terror strategies that we've seen in our Western world. And again, non-violent, where we're seeing these in larger scale through social media campaigns, encampments, rallies, blockades in major cities, university campuses, cyber harassment, doxing, a mapping project, which if you're not familiar, is the names, addresses, and information of Jewish-owned and Israeli-affiliated businesses, in addition to the boycott of Jewish-owned and Israeli-affiliated businesses. So there is credible reason to believe that terror cells do exist within North America. It is something that fact checkers have actually been able to verify. And when I'm done here, I will drop in the chat academic resources so that you can look these up for anybody who is doing fact checking. And these things are with the objective of these non-violent means is, of course, to create chaos and influence government policies in a very subtle way. The other element that we are seeing is recruitment and appearance. So today's terrorists, as we've discussed, do not fit the stereotypical mold. They often resemble very average, ordinary citizens, including young white Westerners who've been recruited to further the extremist agenda. Influential women, particularly political figures, playing a significant role in spreading coercive propaganda. I want to briefly just break down for you nonviolent terrorism, because I realize that for some it's complicated for people to wrap their mind around. It sounds so much like an oxymoron, but just as with other forms of violence, not all acts of terrorism include physical violence. Modern tactics can be equally destructive. So cyber terrorism, the disruption of critical infrastructure that we know of and hear of very frequently, economic sabotage, which just like the BDS movement, where the aim is to destabilize the economy or financial livelihood of Jewish targets through smear campaigns, rumors, boycotts, psychological warfare, which we have seen play a very large part of the attacks since October 7th, as well as political manipulation. the coercive swaying of elections or political decisions, and we'll begin to see this a little more as November rolls around here in the US, as well as informational warfare. So misleading populations through fake news, manipulated media, trained propagandists and influencers. If you're familiar with the original charter, it was one of the major objectives, and continues to be a major objective in their present charter, but not so much in the way that it sounds as if it's a violent means, rather that it is something that's used in a very benign way. So I'd like to go into, I know we don't have a lot of time, but staying vigilant against terrorism, and what threats that are nonviolent or non-physical can look like, and what we can do to be impactful outside of just self-defense and security and those physical needs. So as we've seen, nonviolence can be met with nonviolence. If we see the other side of, the counter-terror is being used for specific political means, we can engage, of course, in political activism. It was something I saw dropped in the chat, that we're participating in letter writing campaigns and telephone campaigns to thank politicians, to inform them, to influence. We can also support Jewish-owned businesses. Strengthening the economic base of Jewish communities globally significantly helps to counteract the economic sabotage and boycotts that have been going on for decades. So whenever possible, it is so consequential to make the effort and support Jewish-owned and Israel-affiliated companies. There are so many resources for finding these, and I would love if it's something that our group is able to provide. It's a very impactful way to make a difference. Being involved in Jewish spaces, of course, like this one here, but also engaging and supporting organizations like Chabad, Birthright, Masa, Swords of Iron, Torah Mates, just so that you can learn more about the beliefs and customs, and Heyrut. So especially during election seasons, it's crucial that Jews do not fall prey to what divides us politically, really, rather that we're connected through our thousands of year old culture, values, and belief systems. Promoting cultural practices is really another way that we can all work to impact and counter what is being perpetuated in the public. So that looks like participating in cultural and religious activities to maintain strong community morale and unity, because a lot of these social media tactics have been used to demoralize, which is part of terrorism, to demoralize the communities, and not show up to events, but participating instead in Hanukkah, Purim, high holidays, making an effort to show up for each other and on a community level. It's incredibly important and impactful. Finally, the effort to educate others in spaces like this, where we're all here today, briefly touching on geospatial issues, on geopolitical issues, staying informed about global and local issues to better understand what is actually happening. That way, when we do go online to advocate and inform, we can do that with intelligence, with backed up, verified resources, and not just on the war in Israel, but also on a community level. So it's the significance of community and cultural involvement is that the bottom line is that it works substantially against demoralization. And this can be done really even on as small a level as lighting candles, baking challah, teaching our children and grandchildren to make Shabbat dinners, to enrich personal connections and foster unity. especially among our young people who are really inundated with the super peer, if you will, of social media. It's the super peer sever is constantly present on the phones, on that computer that you walk around with day in and day and night. And it's really leveraged in a very effective way by radicals, and it has been for many, many years. So the organizations that I spoke with previously offer wonderful opportunities for Jewish learning and community engagement. So in a nutshell, in today's world, staying vigilant against terrorism really requires the discernment of information that we receive in the environment that we live in supporting Jewish communities, businesses, maintaining cultural and religious ties, and acting as effective advocates for Israel. So educating yourself and your children on geopolitical issues, participating in Jewish spaces, and really striving for unity among Jewish denominations of all sorts is so consequential.
Thank you so much, Renee. Noad, can you speak now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Nice. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Aaron, for the invitation. I agree with Renee that hiding who you are and your identity is not an option. Because if we look at our history, it didn't help the Jews in Europe when they were hiding and intermarriage, and it's not going to help anybody even today, even the Jews today that are trying their best to look either Americans or Canadian or whatever. It's not going to help them. It's enough for this mob to realize you're a Jew and attack you on that. It's never been anti-Zionist or anti-Israel. It's always been old-fashioned anti-Semitism. We kind of have seen it boiled up in the last few years, and they were looking for just the excuse of the war in Israel to just bring it all up and attack Jews in LA and Toronto and wherever they are. I'm a fighter, and so is the rest of my family. Where I grew up in Samaria, where they call West Bank. We don't call it that. And I've seen the hatred since I was a kid. If it's the suicide bombers, if it's shooting at the school buses when we were took the bus to school. As a kid, we used to go to school in a bulletproof bus that used to get shot by pretty often. Hiding is never an option because they'll find you. So I said I'm a fighter. I believe in fighting back. I believe that human mentality is not much different than the jungle. Or if you're weak, they're gonna come after you and trying to get you. I always believe in attacking right back. And right now I live in San Diego, and if I could show you, I have a big giant Israeli flag right here across the highway, among with the American flag, just to show if anybody looking for trouble, this is the right place to come get it. We armed and equipped to respond to everything. We're not afraid. And while other people in our community took their mezuzah down because they were afraid of their neighbors, I put it right here, and we're expecting somebody to come. Nobody came. A few months, almost 6 months after, nobody ever came here. They had the guts to come here, because when you're proud, they're not gonna come. They're looking for weak people. How do we make sure we're not weak? This is a daily routine, a daily basis, that either a mental training, physical training, being, I don't know what's the gun laws in Canada, but I believe the Jews need to be armed and ready to defend themselves or run. And I don't do running. So this is my mentality. All three of my kids going to a Jewish school. We have armed guards in the Jewish school. We have parents that help direct and also armed, direct the traffic and everything. And I give you an example. I was in UCLA for a while when all the protesting and all that, all the encampment was there. And I had two of my brothers were in reserve, were in Gaza actually. They came visit me. They took a break from Gaza. And we took a big flag. I have it on my Instagram. You can look it up. We went over there to the encampment with the flag and everything. And we were looking for troubles. We were looking to get someone and give him a good beat up. And we couldn't find anybody. We went there and looked straight everybody's face who's got the guts, the balls to come in, and nobody did. They all looked away, and because that's who they are. They only have the courage when they have the crowd behind them. If you don't show weakness, they usually fold and go back home. I believe that the community have to be, even though we always the minority wherever we are, even Israel is a tiny minority, we always have to show strength and unity. And I believe that Jews across the world have to support Israel no matter what, because not necessarily politics or stuff like that, but it's have to support Israel because not only it's our place to run when stuff will go bad and we see how they're slowly getting bad, but also we need to remember that this is our biggest lobby, the Israelis and the state of Israel. And we need to remember that before Israel, Jews in Europe or America didn't have the same freedom they have now. We couldn't participate in the free market. We couldn't participate wherever we want to, and now we can. And when I see all the stuff going on in the world right now, that's my conclusion, that we have to be proud who we are, not hide it, and support our community, if it's in our close community or a global community, because at the end of the day, it's only us and no one else will come for us to help us. And that's basically it, except of the Renee talked about the suicide bombers. I think we saw the suicide bombers in September 11. Maybe not bombers, but we saw the suicide terrorists, September 11. That was a little taste. And what the United States did after that, went full force, took the fight to the terrorists and kept them busy. And since then, it was quiet, because you don't deal with terrorism with peace and quiet. If someone, and it doesn't matter if it's an act or a saying, if someone says something to support terrorism or support violence against us, I believe in violent, same. We don't have to bring the violence or make a terrorist attacks, but we have to show them that we're capable of and we're not afraid of it. And this is usually what makes violent people fall down. Everywhere I go, everybody always knew me. I always been the for over a decade, I was the only Israeli or Jew in my profession, and everybody always knew me as the Israeli guy or the Jewish guy. And I always took it with pride. I always had Star of David, either of my shorts or my mouth guard, or I had my flag with me. And everybody always knew I'm a soldier. And I was training with Muslims and Arabs, and nobody ever had the courage to say anything to my face, because they knew that I'm not afraid to punch. And this is what I'm teaching my kids. All my kids are very proud Jews, very strong. They're always trained, they're always ready. And I really think that for a long time, especially in North America, Jews always try to help everybody. I like how the Jews always tikkun olam, always trying to fix the world for others instead of focus on your community and strengthening your own community and yourself and your house before you go out and trying to fix other people's house that not necessarily are looking for help from us. They're looking for a reason to hate, and it's easy to find when you look for it. And when they hit you and you presume being weak, then attacks and stuff like that are going to happen. So I'm not going to be weak. That's basically what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Noad. It's always a pleasure. And that's exactly the mentality that every Jew around the world needs to adopt. I just want to take 1 second and say hi to one of our brothers here who was in Gaza. He's an amazing individual in Israel right now. Yonatan, if you'd like to come on and just discuss quickly whatever. I mean, the floor is yours. You discuss what you want to discuss. You're the man as far as I'm concerned.
I want to thank everyone who already shared. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Okay. I want to thank everyone who already shared. You were all very interesting, and I'll just keep it very brief. You know, when we're talking here about empowering Jews and Jewish empowerment and strong Jews, I think it's really important to remember that there's many ways of being strong. And, you know, I myself, I'm a paratrooper reservist. So, you know, I was fighting on the battlefield in Gaza itself, but this war is so multi-front, and we all have our own battles to fight for the Jewish people, for Israel, for Western civilization. And it's important that everyone fights their own battle and everyone is as strong as they can be, both physically and mentally and spiritually. So my blessing for you all is that you can all continue to be strong.
יונתן, איזה גדוד אתה?
66 in מילואים. In סדיר I was 101.
890 מרץ 3.
Oh,
לא,
wow.
אתה 55, יונתן, אתה ב-55.
חטיבה.
לא.
חטיבת 55.
Battalion.
סליחה.
Yeah, חטיבה. Battalion. He was 101. I was 890. 20 years ago, 21 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Yonatan.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone.
I think we can open it up for a brief Q&A if anybody wants to ask any questions.
We ask that
Please.
everybody raise their hand, so not everybody's
Yeah.
speaking at once.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. That's a great idea. And we'll just keep it brief because we don't want to take your whole Sunday up, and we really sincerely appreciate you. So let's try to keep it brief. Go ahead, Miriam, pick whoever, please.
Okay, hold on, I'm seeing. not everybody I can see because some people are on speaker.
And please direct the questions at whoever you'd like to answer them, and we'll just keep it as super brief. Sandra Kessler has her hand up, I see. And Brian's got his hand up.
Okay, Sandy.
We have to unmute her.
Well, I asked her, they have to unmute themselves.
Oh, you have to unmute, Sandra. There you go.
Okay, so thank you all. This was really, really great, enlightening, such great information. My question is pretty much for all of you. Perhaps Renee can speak to this more, but the issue that I have is that I see, you know, what's happening with Jews in Israel and all of that as part of, and maybe the front lines of, a much larger attack on Western civilization and Western values. And without a strong West, you know, the countries that we have previously relied on, and it's getting scary out there, you know, it's just very difficult. So I was just wondering if you could respond to that larger global issue. Thanks.
I mean, thank you for that, Sandy. I think before Renee gets into the technical aspect of it, if she wants, I think the first thing is it boils down to weak leadership that allows it. If we had stronger leaders that wouldn't have allowed the encampments, or wouldn't have allowed these protests en masse and the violence that happens at the protests. I think if they shut them down in its tracks, like they do in very few countries, but it's effective. And I mean, if that were the case, you wouldn't be dealing with this Western issue that we're dealing with today. Renee, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So it's a question of geopolitical tactics. And what we can see is that Israel is the last democracy that is in the Middle East. Now, it's strategic for the, it's strategic in terms of terror because it's the last ally that the United States has there. Once that falls, it makes the Western culture very open to it. We've already seen this throughout North America, where we have large bodies of political systems, cities that are actually run by the Islamic agenda, if you will, which is radicalized. So what I'm hearing, the question from you is that why is this like this? Why are we here? How did we get here? And Aaron touched on that, is because ultimately we have not had an effective leadership that has been able to prevent this issue from expanding. And without effective leadership, things will continue to perpetuate. Globally, our Jewish population needs allyship. It needs strong leadership. And we need to work effectively, just as effectively, in terms of the not propaganda, but in the communication and organization for good. Because really, at the end of the day, it's a battle of good versus evil. You have Western culture versus Sharia law.
If I can just add one thing, so I do know all of that, and of course leadership is essential, but do you have any ideas about what we have to do going forward? I mean, literally, what are your ideas about changing that leadership?
So what I would like people to take away is that we need to have a strong, united Jewish community. And this is very, it can be very complicated, especially during election season throughout North America, because the human psyche is very self-centered, if you will. We have desire to fulfill our own needs, and it can be very difficult to extract ourselves from, at the end of the day, I just want better gas prices versus I want the survival of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And what do I have to do? How do I have to vote to prevent, to keep that alive? And you know, at the end of the day, it's really having to soul search and knowing what we want and answer the question of, are we willing to do what is necessary to achieve it? Western values are very sadly self-centered, and many of us who don't operate in Jewish spaces day to day forget that we lose sight of that big picture.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for your question, Sandra. Miriam, does anybody else have a question? I think Brian wanted to ask something.
Well, I also see Sharon Abramson has her hand up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, she has her hand up. So go ahead and Sharon, if you can unmute.
I did. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's really important. I mean, I'm an old lady. I don't feel old, but I am. And I do not go out of the house without wearing either my Israeli army shirt or my Women Against Anti-Semitism shirt, whatever. I will not allow anybody to make me back down. And I write letters consistently. And if I had to fight, if somebody came up and bothered me, I was at a rally and I saw them beating up one of the people at the rally. And I went over there with a few people. The police had dealt with it, but I started singing Am Israel High. And these people, all of a sudden, from a group of about 30, had dwindled down to about 7, with one little kid holding a doll that was supposed to be a dead body. I think we also have to write letters to our so-called leaders that have created a big problem and demand that they respect. I wrote a letter to Jagmeet Singh about his policy to defund this one and to fund UNRWA, etc. And he had the gall to write me thanking me for supporting him.
Well,
And
that's a stock letter that they send you, Sharon. That's just a stock letter that you got back.
I know, but they didn't get a stock letter back from me.
No, of course not.
I wrote a letter to them and informed them that I considered that a hate crime, that they were writing to a Jewish person who had voiced a concern, and they're thanking me for supporting them. Therefore, if they ever write to me again, I will be going and getting in touch with a lawyer and charging against them. I've never gotten another thing from Jagmeet.
All right. Thank you very much, Sharon. We appreciate your question and your fighting with the letter writing is so important, and I would encourage everybody to do that when you see a wrong. You know, it's extremely important. Brian, I think you wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
All right, great. Yeah, as for Renee, I'm very concerned, you know, the elections in France and Britain have gone left. In Britain, it was like a landslide, and my buddy Jeremy Corbyn is just bragging and pulling out his shtick all the time. My question is, the Jewish communities, like France has about over 400,000, and Britain, I think, has over 300,000. They're saying Aliyah applications in France have like doubled. So my question is basically the Jewish communities in France and Britain especially, I know they should be concerned, but how in danger do you think they are now with this shift in elections?
So it's an actual threat. I lived in Paris for 2 years. And when I was maybe about a week into life in Paris, I was told very clearly to not wear my Maggid David on the RER because it would not be safe. Now, this is many, many years ago. So now what we're seeing is there are attacks even for individuals who will hide their identity as a Jew. Once found out, the violent consequences, as we saw in Paris with the 12-year-old girl, are real. So how real is the threat? It is present. It is more significant in Paris at the moment than it is in many areas of the United States. So vigilance looks like something completely different in Europe, London and Paris than it does here in North America.
Thank you. Miriam, have we got anybody else that wants to ask a question before we go?
I'm checking the chat because some people had questions in the chat room. Because there was one early on. I'm trying to see if I can find it.
Zev saying he did.
You have to go back, have to scroll back and look through them all. All right, Zev, can you repeat your question now? Okay.
Sorry, trying to unmute.
Okay.
So let me expand on my question. My question was about, the popular opinion and so, relating to social media and, generally the expanding opinion against Israel that Hamas and their allies seem to be winning in that or expanding their support. What can we do in the long term to reverse that and expand our support, and why are we not doing a good job of it so far when really we have the tools to do it? We should be focusing more on improving our name out there.
Thank you, Zev. Renee, you want that one?
Yes, that sounds perfect.
I like
So it's not that we're not doing a good job to improve our name or public relations campaigns. The problem is, I'm going to use a frog in hot and boiling water analogy, right? You stick a frog in boiling water, it's immediately going to unalive. But if we put the frog in lukewarm water and just keep adding the hot water, eventually the frog is going to cook. It's a lot of what we've seen, as I mentioned about the charter in 1988. We knew the charter was laid out. We knew what the intent was, and so many of us, politicians, political figures, public officials, really people stood back, and citizens as well, civilians stood back and said, this isn't possible. This isn't possible that it would happen. They're just a small terror group making noise. Within that charter, however, there was a very specific detail that I think a lot of people do forget, where they effectively stated that they would be using culture, religion, finances, media, any form of civilized means to accomplish their agenda. Now, it's not necessarily that we're bad at doing what we're doing, but we're dramatically behind. One of the things the Jewish people have been incredible at is organizing and doing it in an impactful way. So when we're here and we're encouraging individuals to become involved in the Jewish communities and support Jewish-owned businesses and to speak out, to be part of these campaigns and have your voice heard, these are very actionable, realistic things that can be done. So we're not bad at it. We're just very, very behind, because I believe that no one thought the threat was real. Now, that stands in a lot of cognitive bias. We look for reasons to confirm what we believe. I want to believe that I'm safe, and therefore I'm going to look for reasons of why I'm safe, because nobody has pulled down my Israeli flag from the front yard. Nobody has physically assaulted me on the street dressed, in Tzini. But it doesn't mean that the threat is not real. So these are things that we just really need to take into consideration and need to address them before they get out of hand.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Zev, for that question. And I want to add that Zev attends a lot of rallies, does his part, always present at the pro-Israel events and marches, and it's amazing. I know Zev for many years, and I appreciate him very much. Anybody else have anything that they'd like us to get on?
There's a question from Sherry's Cam. She's asking, should we as Jews in the United States make Aliyah or fight it out here?
I mean, listen, that's of course a personal decision. In my opinion, in Noad's opinion, and most of the people that I know's opinion, fight it out. You stand your ground. Why give up your home? Why give up something you've worked your whole life to develop and build and acclimate to just because they don't want you there? I would stand my ground and get your politicians in play, get people working for your community, and that's a very strong tool that a lot of people don't understand really, is that you can have your local politicians working for you, and when you write them letters, most of them will respond to you and say, either here's my answer or let's have a meeting and have a further discussion about it. And there's a lot of really great people out there that you can write to, but absolutely not. I would never leave. I just wouldn't. I'm here to fight. I'm here to stand my ground, and I'm here to make sure that everything we built over years stays intact. Leaving is, and it's not even an easy option to leave, because you've got to reestablish yourself in Israel or wherever it is you want it to go. And that's no easy feat. But, taking gun courses, defending yourself, arming yourself, protecting your home, that will give you the confidence to stay. Believe me, if you've got yourself trained and ready to protect your home and your family, that gives you a very substantial confidence. And I personally, I'm staying. I wouldn't go. Karma, you had a question?
No, I wanted to add on the issue of Aliyah, just to explain and to elaborate a little bit or embellish. And to embellish basically on what you said, I think what Aaron is trying to say, and correct me, feel free, is that we're tough Jews. We don't back down when somebody tries. We don't run. Making Aliyah is not because we're running away from anti-Semitism. Making Aliyah is the highest form of Zionism, and we all believe that. And I know Aaron believes that. That's why I really wanted to elaborate on that point. I know 100% Aaron believes in that. And but not everyone can live in Israel. And as a Jewish American Israeli, or now I'm a Jewish Israeli American, because that's the order in which I put things, or I say things, or describe myself. I feel that living in Israel is a privilege, but I know that it's not one that everyone can, make right for them. For no better way of putting it, I'm tippy-toeing here, but I really want to say Israel is not for everyone. And diaspora Jewry is super important, and we need to embrace and strengthen. So the first thing, obviously, Chirut promotes Aliyah, and Aaron would be the first to say it, so I don't doubt that for a second. But what he is saying, and I'd like to reiterate, is that, forgive me, F them, forgive my French, we're not going anywhere just because you're going to drive us out. When a family feels, or somebody feels that they're strong enough or can handle it or want to make Aliyah, that's a time to do it, not because we are afraid of the anti-Semites. That's not the reason to make Aliyah, and we need to stay and fight them, because God forbid there should be an area where we can't go to because they've beaten us. And I think that's the main issue. And Aaron's expertise is that. I'm an expertise, by the way, at telling people the truth about Israel. I adore this country with every single fiber in my body, but it is not easy. It is not easy. And I need to have, I call it my back home fix every couple of months to come back to the States and bring back, yes, people think I'm nuts. They open my suitcases and they expect 100 t-shirts to sell in Israel, and they find, no, I'm not kidding, Snyder's pretzels. No, I'm not kidding. So everybody has their, the stuff that they bring back with them, and the United States will always be home to me, but Israel is my, the home that I chose to be in. So they don't contradict each other. American Jewry, world Jewry is important. And we can't deny that. And we can't let them win. We cannot let them win. We have to do it intelligently. Renee and Aaron and Noad are the people that know how to do the security part on that end. I was a very, very proud combat soldier in the IDF. I make jokes and I say back in the day when the British Mandate was here, but I'm exaggerating a bit, but it was a long time ago. But very, very proud. I even got, we were all honored for our service in Lebanon after Lebanon 1, between Lebanon 1 and 2. So these are things I'm very proud of, but don't be ashamed, of not being able or not choosing, lehefech, as we say, quite the opposite. World Jewry is needed, and tough world Jewry, not aggressive, not violent, smart. And that's what's needed. So
Yeah.
thank you. Excuse me,
Well, someone else has another question.
Okay.
Yeah, someone is asking, they're looking for, we need a Jewish leader who will speak up and defend the Jewish people worldwide. Someone who is not preaching to the choir. And they're trying to find out how can that be accomplished, or can that be accomplished?
An American leader?
We just said a Jewish leader. They didn't say American or not, but I assume they're talking about American.
I don't want to call out Karen and force her to speak on behalf of overly saturated New York, where 3 organizations can't stand in the same rally together. But
I'm here.
yeah, no, look, we aspire to establish American Jewish leadership that will work together. Cherut will work with anyone. The problem is most Jewish organizations want to do their own thing. They want to work alone, and they want to trash the others. If you play nice in the sandbox, we will play with you, and we will do Zionism where it matters. Try to trash us, you're done. So, and this is something, the team is we're very family-like. We will work, we cooperate. We've got a fantastic relationship with Stand With Us for materials, and we do stuff together with them. SSI has been working with us. We've got great stuff going on, but the bigger organizations have bigger egos than ideologies. Forgive me.
Listen, we have to speak to the broader community, which I do almost on a daily basis, because I sometimes wonder, like, are we just talking to each other? That enters my mind a lot, and we are talking to each other because it's important to branch off and be able to speak to others. As long as we're doing that, and that's where the multifaceted attack comes in. So we educate each other, we speak to each other, and then we go off and do it to the world. And that's how my approach has been for years, and a lot of people that I work with, because we don't want to preach to the choir, but we do, because some of the choir needs to be better versed at what they're talking about, so that they can then go off and speak to the world. So and I mean, yes, Karma, thank you for clarifying that, because my whole point was, when I want to move to Israel or wherever, that will be my choice. Not because somebody's going to say, you have to move because your family's not safe and we're going to make you move, because I'm going to take, and I have, the same approach that Noad's taken. Here's the house. Here's where I am. Do what you got to do. If you feel that you're good enough to come in and do it, let's do it. And he's right. They won't come. They're only going to come where they know they can get away with it. It's complete bully mentality. It's bully 101. As soon as you push back against a bully, what do? They run away. And these people in crowds, they're strong, real strong, in crowds of 100. And you've all seen videos of me with 100 guys against 5,000 of them in a crowd. And people are like, what are you, nuts? There's 5,000 of them. No, there isn't. There's maybe 20 of them that we really are going to have to deal with. The rest of them are just there because they're surrounded by 100 people each. And their voices are real amplified when they have all this support. But as soon as you confront them face to face, and there's that famous video of the Muslim man saying by 1960, we're going to overpopulate you and we're going to implement Sharia law. That happened in Toronto. I was doing security for the reporter who was interviewing him. I was standing right there when it happened. And when he went off camera, I said, buddy, you might try to implement Sharia law. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. He said, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, we'll have to see when we get to that point. But at the end of the day, we're not going to go quietly. And either are the Christian communities and the Catholic communities and so on and so forth. They don't just want to give up their religion and who they are. The sheep that are following them right now, it's just because it's a TikTok trend to them. The free movement, it's just a TikTok trend. That's it. There's no more dances on TikTok. Now it's this movement. But when they realize how foolish they've been, I'm sure it will change. And if it doesn't, we'll keep pushing back. And we'll just keep going. Miriam? Hello. Okay, I think Miriam's not here.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry.
there she is.
We'll have, if there are any more questions, otherwise we will wrap this up. I want to thank everybody who came and participated in this. Thank you for coming out and listening. And Aaron, if you want to tell a little more what's coming up for in general, just a brief overview.
Yeah, quickly. So we've created what we're calling Magen Hirut, Protectors of Freedom. Basically, it's a volunteer-based protection crew in various cities. The difference will be these volunteers are skilled, trained, vetted, have to have background in some type of self-defense, martial arts, weapons, and we're going to deploy them to the Jewish community, synagogues, events, schools, institutions. We're just going to be extra security for the community. It's going to be a donation-based system where we don't charge a flat fee. It's whatever the institution or whatever is, whatever's affordable to them for that event. And we will work in conjunction with, security that's there already, or police, or whoever happens to be there, but we will provide a lot more security for Jewish events, schools, neighborhoods, homes, anything Jewish, we're going to be, God willing, protecting. So we're rolling that out now, and we are just identifying certain aspects of things, but God willing, in the next couple weeks, we'll be launching. So we look forward to everybody's support on that. And of course, we're always fighting the fight, and we're always doing what we do. And we're never going to stop. Bottom line, we just cannot stop, because Israel is there. We need it. We love it. And Am Yisrael Chai, man. That's it. That's about all I can tell you.
All right. I want to again thank you so much, Aaron, Renee, Noad. Thank you all for speaking and taking up your time this Sunday afternoon. I want to thank everybody who came on to listen on this Sunday afternoon. And if you're not part of the Harut mailing list, I suggest you sign up at harutna.org. That way you can stay apprised of everything that's going on, especially our new, Magen Harut. And again, thank everybody. And I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Shvu Tov, and Am Yisrael Chai.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Toda rabba, Noad.